Shake Them Ropes video. Rob McCarron, Jeff Hawkins. We just got done talking to Brodus Clay, Tyrus of TNA. Tyrus was awesome.
I liked him a lot, and it was one of those things. Right before we came on here, we were nervous because when he answered the phone, it was like, "How are you doing today?" Fine. It's like, "Oh no, man, we're gonna have to drag out. We're gonna have to pull teeth for an interview."
I was dreading, and it completely spun around because he was great. And I mean, if you listen to it on Shake Them Ropes, the audio podcast, we'll link it in the description. But you have to listen to this. I mean,
I don't think we embarrassed ourselves. I think we did okay.
I wasn't so worried about embarrassing myself. I just, when I answer, because he called into us, when I answer the phone and go, "How are you today?" Fine. Oh, one word short.
Oh, no.
Because it's the Brodus Clay that you imagine. And, you know, he's Tyrus on there. He's not talking a lot. You envision that he's going to do that. And
I'm talking to these wrestling geeks. They're not going to be able to let me say anything other than storyline stuff. And it killed me when he goes, "Yeah, I'm pretty gregarious in real life." And that's with the moment when things started flowing with him, and you're just like, "Wow, this blows all my expectations out of the water right now." And
I don't give any of the credit to us.
No.
He got into it because he likes talking wrestling.
Yes.
So he was getting into it because we were talking wrestling, and we were talking about his experiences. And he told us right off the bat that we had 20 minutes and we went 40.
Nice.
So, I mean, he was into it.
And we didn't apologize to him for it.
I wrote out what I always fear when doing these interviews. You know, I feared it greatly when I did the interview with Jeff Jarrett, when I interviewed Nick Dinsmore on the show, and now with Tyrus, is I always fear that I don't have enough questions, that I'll run through the questions, especially if
you had plenty.
I had more than enough. We didn't get to half of them.
Yeah.
Which is great. I love it when the person speaks out and they don't, give a one word. It's not, Jim Harbaugh doing an interview on ESPN radio right now. It's, something where they actually are into it and they give answers and they're willing to expand on those answers. Like I can ask them a 3-word question and their answer is 300 and that's perfect.
No, those are the types of interviews you want. That's what you hear in sports talk radio all the time is I don't want to be the star of this interview. I want you to be the star of this interview. And you just let them go.
I don't want to talk.
And even this dummy right here that I'm pointing at didn't derail it with his questions. Right. So I'm happy about that.
And I by no means am an expert. I'm not an expert interviewer by any means. And I probably will never be. But, what I tried to do mostly this time was make sure that, when the person is done talking or when it seems like they're done talking, pause for a little bit. Maybe they'll keep going. Tyrus kept going.
Yeah.
It was great. Sometimes he kept going and kept going.
Yeah, sometimes his pauses would throw me off because, here's where I had to, he's going on.
I thought he was done. But no, I mean, we're recording this video now. We're recording this post show just because, that guy blew away my expectations.
He and I have very similar backgrounds too because I taught school right after, I was finally done with football to make money and stuff. And I totally got that he can connect with kids better than adults.
Yeah.
I've had that as well for a lot of my life. Working with kids, and no, I totally get it, and that's why I kind of kids have no pretense, and especially the special needs kids he was teaching with, which I don't. My dad does some of that in his retirement age and stuff. A lot of them play football to get out their anger issues due to their educational struggles and stuff like that. I could totally see him connecting with those guys.
Yeah, he was great. Brodus Clay on Twitter, Tyrus Smash on Instagram. He was phenomenal, better than I could have expected. It was a fun time. And so, catch the audio podcast of that. He was cool. And I was telling you this before we got Tyrus on is, the whole reason we got in contact with him is when Dave Meltzer wrote about Destination America canceling TNA, I reached out to a bunch of different TNA people.
Right.
I was trying to get someone on, thinking that no one would.
Because we talk so much TNA on
Well, not even that, but I only asked people also that had a WWE background. We talked on the show last week about the Young Bucks facing Rey Mysterio and Alberto Del Rio. Not because of the Young Bucks, but because of Alberto Del Rio and Rey Mysterio.
Right. We're not confined to WWE. We'll go elsewhere.
Right. But we do try to find some type of connection. When we talk PWG, it's because a lot of those guys had worked for WWE before. WWE goes to those shows. They scout those shows. William Regal has attended those shows. There's a connection to everything that we talk about for the most part to WWE. It's why we really try not to talk about New Japan as much as I would want to, as much as you would want to. We don't, because there's not a whole lot of connection there. But US Indies, absolutely. But I was trying to reach out to these guys to see if they would come on and talk TNA and talk about their WWE back issues. The only one who got back to me, and I only reached out to about 5 people, the only one that got back was Tyrus. And Tyrus took the time today, twice as much time as he wanted to allot, to talk to us.
No, and that's very nice of him. And also, you got to also realize your request came at a time when there's blood in the water.
Yeah.
And might not be the best time for interviews in terms of employees don't know what's going on.
Right.
They're going to be cranky about their work situation and stuff like that. So we have to be understanding of that. I mean, yeah, you reach out to people, and if someone's nice enough to say, okay, that they're going to talk, you don't want to also just then, poke the bear with the stick, so to speak.
And not to mention the fact that this was also going on when there were a lot of reports that TNA didn't want their people to talk to anybody.
Right.
It seems like that's loosened up a little bit, but they didn't want anyone to talk because all that was out there was negativity. And, there's a lot of viewers of TNA. I mean, they still have 400,000 people watching the show live on Wednesday nights. They have a lot of fans. It's a vocal minority of the people that give TNA a bad name. But, there was a time where they didn't want their people talking. And our little small podcast here on the Voices of Wrestling Network, Brodus Clay, Tyrus, came on to talk to us for a bit. And I couldn't be more appreciative.
And here's what I want to say, and I almost said this last week on our show to WWE fans. You shouldn't be rooting for a promotion to die because you only like WWE.
Mm-hmm.
You should not be doing it. You can prefer WWE style of storytelling. You can prefer their presentation. You can prefer how they run their company and everything.
Right.
But you should not watch TNA and go, I don't like them because they're not Vince.
Right.
They're not WWE, because these guys, Vince doesn't necessarily know how to use everybody to their full potential. And there is a lot of good you can find in TNA if you watch enough. Now, granted, their shows don't always hit home runs. I will be the first to admit that. But, these tag team matches with Aries and Rude versus the Wolves, the EC3 Tyrus interplay is really, really good. I love EC3 in TNA.
Yeah.
He's a great, great character. Rockstar Spud is very interesting. Even Bram, who's re-signed 40 times in the last week. It's fun to watch. So, I mean, you can get positive stuff out of federations, even if you're not a fan of it.
Is there embarrassing stuff around TNA? Yes. There's embarrassing stuff around WWE too. We just don't harp on it because that company it's not perceived as dying, which sometimes TNA is, but
and then we're called negative on the podcast. So, and we try and avoid that too. So we kind of gloss over the negative a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, Tyrus was great. Yeah. And talk about this. The guy told us that he was looking at maybe 3 years left of him in the ring. Then he wants to be an agent or wants to do something. This guy would make a great ambassador. Look at how well-spoken he was, what he's doing, his background. This guy, I wanted to ask him, one of the things that we didn't have time to was the Be a Star campaign in WWE, because he had grown up with a rough childhood and, he was heavily involved in the anti-bullying campaign. And this is a guy that, like Titus O'Neil is in WWE right now, is the super ambassador. Brodus Clay could be something like that in the future. This is a guy that if he wants to stay in wrestling for a long haul, even not in the ring, looks like he definitely has the head on his shoulders to do so.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because of his style. He can go a longer time. He's my age, which floored me a bit because when I heard, I'd like to have a nice singles run here, and I'm just thinking, wow, most guys my age have retired from wrestling by now.
Right,
You're looking at 3 or 4 more years. I'm like, I didn't want to mention that, but it's like, hey, more power, brother. But he also, he's a big guy. He can work that side. I mean, the Giant is like a year or 2 older than he is. Kane is in his mid to late 40s right now. If you're big and you're working a semi-light style, you can be around for a long, long time.
That's true. Yeah, and that was great. I encourage everyone to go check out the audio podcast.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Check out at Shake Them Ropes on Twitter, at Brodus Clay on Twitter if you want to follow Tyrus. You can get us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, everywhere. Go to Shake Them Ropes, voicesofwrestling.com/STR.